Marie, and this is the beautiful Crystal Ann Compton.
Hi.
And today is, I don't even know how to explain what today is, Crystal.
I don't know where my mind is. Well, it's in the mind of all, but
Yes.
I just know that I didn't know that we were signing up to read what feels to me at times like a scientific text, like
Yes.
really, really dense, where science and metaphysics, although they would not call it metaphysics, science and philosophy
Hmm.
intersect. Like some of the concepts are so layered and so deep that I had to read. It's like reading St. Paul in Romans. Like I have to
Yes.
read it over and over again because there's just levels and levels and levels of what they are trying to say. I mean, it's simple,
Oh,
but it's not easy.
well, yeah. It's simply put, impossibly complex to
Hmm.
understand. Like, I just, I mean, I called you and I wrote you and I was like, oh my God, we thought we were going to be able to do three chapters. And I feel like we could do five podcasts on each chapter and not
Hmm.
even scratch the surface of what it's trying to say. But yet,
Right.
very fascinating and exciting, and almost feels like, for me, this feels like something I've been waiting to find, which I guess is why the book says it finds you,
Hmm.
when it's your time. But really, something, this is a humongous shift in the way I can conceptualize this idea that I've been struggling to put together my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to hear your thoughts about it. I guess we should tell everybody that we were going to cover three chapters today, chapters 3, 4, and 5.
Hmm.
But upon getting into it, we realized we should really cut that back because there are so many different concepts and ideas that we really need to have the time to allow them all to bloom and for us
Hmm.
to kind of talk them through, because I'm not going to tell you I understood absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful I have Elenique, because I'm just going to ask you, wait, God is
No.
unknowable, but I feel like I know God. We're going to hash that out.
Yes.
So lots and
Yes.
lots of
Very
good stuff.
exciting. Absolutely.
Well, before we get in, why don't we just remind folks that we are doing chapters 3 and 4 today.
Hmm.
Next week, we're going to be doing chapters 5 and 6.
Yes.
And then, our vision was to be done with the Kybalion in the middle of December, but we might have to take it through
Yeah.
all of December, because if we have more chapters like these, we're going to have to
Mm,
spend time.
definitely.
And you know what I think
Agreed.
I'm going to do? I think I'm just going to try and be the person who simplifies what it is to the best of
Yes.
my ability
Yes.
and reduces it down to concepts and maybe even action steps that we can use. I'm good at that.
I like it.
Yeah, just so that everybody
And
kind
that's
of,
usable. And
yeah.
again, what we talked about yesterday, in our last podcast, when we said that we want to take it out of the realm of the psychological, intellectual experience and really have it be something you can use.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it's worthless. So,
Exactly.
we also want to remind you that we do have a Facebook group. It's called the Miraculous Thinking Facebook group. The link is in the description. If you are on Facebook, if you partake of the Facebook, please look for us and ask to join us. That's where we're going to be updating like what chapters we're going to be working in, what the new books are going to be that we're going to be getting into, and any other additional information that'll be reserved for that group. So please join us if you are so inclined. And also, if you would like to write us, give us your thoughts about how it's going as we're moving through this miraculous content, go ahead and write to us at miraculousthinking@gmail.com. That's miraculous thinking, one word, @gmail.com. We love to hear from people. We read all the comments on YouTube, we read all of the emails, and we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And in line with that, I'm trying to jump in here into Miraculous Thinking for a minute on Facebook because we got a lovely recommendation
Mm,
from one of our viewers for the next book that she was suggesting that we
okay.
needed to cover. I just wanted to do a little shout out to her, but for some reason, everything is going very slowly today.
Are
Let
we
me see if I can grab it here.
Are we still in
Miraculous.
Mercury retrograde?
I
I
think
feel like
we're
I'm
in
always
something.
in Mercury Gatorade.
No. I'm just trying to see here all comments. Let me see. I think it was on our last comments here, but well, if I find it between now and the end, we'll definitely
Yes,
read.
we would love book recommendations. We have a ton of
Yes.
books. We talk about books all the time, but it doesn't just have to be books that we have or have read. In fact, neither of us have really read the entire Kybalion, so this is new
Nope.
to us. But we are always looking for some good content. And I was watching a video of Dr. Wayne Dyer last Friday, and he mentioned, I think, the mystic teachings, the teachers of the Far East,
I think so. I
something
think I
like
know what
that.
you mean.
I wrote it down and I'm like,
Okay.
I'm going to have to get it. And this might have to be one of the books.
Oh, well,
There's
let's
volume one
do
and
it.
volume
I
two.
mean, I'm excited because I find that when our viewers recommend things to us, it means that it's meant to come to us. You know, it's like
Mhm.
receiving those signs from the universe and knowing that, okay, this is what we're meant to explore. So thank you and keep the suggestions coming. We
We love them.
definitely, yeah.
I just have to laugh because it's like, for those of you watching on video, it's like, Elenique, you're shrinking lower and lower in the
Am I?
frame.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I think that's
Pretty
my
soon.
camera. Hold on. Hold
I
on a
think
minute.
it's
I'm
hilarious.
afraid it's going to fall off.
Pretty
Okay,
soon
wait
it's
a
just
minute.
going to be your
It's
forehead.
just going to be my, yeah, the top of my head. Can you see me now? Is
Yeah,
this better?
that's
Now
better.
I'm way
That,
taller than you.
but it might move, so it's perfect. It's great.
Okay,
Don't
it
move a
might move.
thing. It's
Okay, don't do
fantastic.
anything.
It's
Okay,
good.
I'll stay up here. I'll be the giant.
I was just laughing. I'm like, where's she going?
Hello.
Yes, we would love to hear from you. But let's get into chapters 3 and 4 of the Kybalion, starting with
Yes.
chapter 3, which is entitled Mental Transmutation. This chapter opens with a quote, which I will read. It reads, "Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. True hermetic transmutation is a mental art." So, this was a pretty interesting chapter. It's talking about how the universe is mental in nature and kind of drills down into that, and also asserts, which of course we'll get all into this, but it asserts that masters of this knowledge are able to manipulate physical reality. And that's true alchemy. True alchemy is
Yes.
not necessarily about transmuting metals, it is about transmitting these mental states or working in the higher domains in order to impact the lower domains. And so we talk about this in this chapter. And I just thought it was really, really, really interesting. What are some of your major takeaways for chapter 3?
Well, what I found great about the opening quote is that essentially the 7 laws that we are going to be exploring are contained in that quote. So it says state to state, which we discussed yesterday was vibration, degree to degree, which we talked about the range, right, that we can be on, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. So everything you need to know is in that particular quote. And yet, when you look at what they say about transmutation, what it is, what does it really mean? And they said to transmute means to change from one nature to another nature, from one nature, form, or substance into another. So to transform something. So mental transmutation means the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. So for me, that was very powerful because that's what, and then they say transmutation is the art of mental chemistry.
Mhm.
And I
Right.
love that way of imagining it, that we're in the kitchen, you know, in the lab cooking with our thoughts, and what we're pouring into the bowl and what we're pouring into the, those chemistry containers is going to create something which will become manifest in the mental plane and later in the physical plane, depending on what elements we're choosing, based on vibration, based on condition, based on all those other things.
And this is just another way to discuss manifestation, correct? Like
Absolutely.
manifestation in its simplest form, if we're reading The Secret, manifestation is the idea that your thoughts or things, your intention and your will impresses upon the physical reality and brings things into material reality or manifestation. But it starts in the imaginal plane, it starts with the vision, and it also starts with how you feel or vibrate within yourself. That's kind of the simplified
Yes.
manifestation formula, but this is kind of really breaking it down, talking about what the universe is, and as we go into the chapters, like how to actually begin to manipulate these different domains, these dimensional spaces, higher and lower planes. I did want to point out that this particular, I was going to say scripture, this particular passage about the universe, in that it is mental in nature. This is from page 28. If the universe is mental in its nature, then mental transmutation must be the art of changing the conditions of the universe along the lines of matter, force, and mind. So you see, therefore, that mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works, and about which they gave so few practical instructions.
I love that part. I
Yes,
was like, yes.
it feels like a lot of these other philosophies and even systems of magic are just kind of approximations, trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out the formula on how to do
Absolutely.
the thing. And they're
Mm-hmm.
getting it some of the time, and some of it is eternal, some of it is true. But this book would purport that it's not the full truth, it's a half truth, if you will.
Exactly. And I love that thing that he says about which they gave so few practical instructions, which is the roadblock we had when we were reading the Four Agreements. When we're like, uh-huh, true, yes,
Right.
yes. And then you get to the end and you're like, but how do I
How?
implement this now?
How?
And
Yep.
that's where they usually leave us hanging. So I think this book is going to have some concrete suggestions, which I'm excited about.
Me too. We also learned that advanced masters, which I guess would be the Hermetists, can
Yes.
control physical or material reality. Quote, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the grosser conditions. But that such men have existed and do exist today is a matter of earnest belief to all advanced occultists of all schools. These masters do not make public exhibitions of their powers, interesting, but seek seclusion from the crowds of men in order to better work their way along the path of attainment. We mention their existence at this point merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental and operates along the lines of the highest mental transmutation under the Hermetic principle of mentalism. And I was thinking to myself, well, who are some of these masters who are able to control these grosser conditions? And of course, I think of Jesus,
Yes.
you know, making
Mm-hmm.
water into wine or producing the loaves and the fishes. I think of Aleister Crowley, actually, also called the Beast. In his
Mm-hmm.
writings, and also witnesses have also said that he was able to impress his will upon other people, even unsuspecting people, which we learn as we continue into this text. I remember a story of Aleister Crowley talking about how he was walking down a sidewalk and there was somebody about 6 feet in front of him walking ahead of him, and he created the mental intention to cause that person to trip and fall. And I don't recall like the process of that for him and what that was like, but within a matter of moments, the man in front of him just tripped and fell, and Alistair just kept on walking. But he was able to impress his will upon these natural conditions, which we're going to learn in future chapters. Like, that is the paradox, right? We're
Yes.
existing in this magical dream of God, but we're also obeying. We can use the laws of nature in order to be there and to be here. So Aleister Crowley, Jesus Christ. I'm not likening those two, by the way.
Right.
I'm not likening those two, but Jesus Christ, Babaji. There are many, many different miracle workers who have done this type of thing. So it's possible if you understand the principles.
Well, and the thing that struck me was that essentially what I took away from that was it's almost like we're God's AI. You know,
Mm.
we're that artificial intelligence that's becoming self aware, that's understanding that it's an expression of that creative force, the all that is. And if we know how, we can even program the game that we're in, of
Oh
which we are a
yeah,
character, but now we're self aware characters inside of a game,
I love it. Yes,
right?
yes. And so that is the that is the challenge of the life, is to become, well, that's self-realization, right?
Yes.
Realizing that you are a God self and you are living in your God energy here in the natural universe, and so you're both
Even
things
though
at
you're
once.
in a different expression of degree, which is what I really appreciated about this. Because I've really struggled with this thing that everybody goes around saying, I am God, I am this, I am that. And I'm like, I think there's a little bit more to it than that, you know? So, this way of viewing, yes, you are part of the all, but you are not the all.
Well, here, let full stop, because that is one of the parts that I had some dissonance around, because
Okay.
because they say it outright in the Kybalion that people
Mm-hmm.
who think they're God, they're missing the mark. They're like, they're not understanding it fully. But as I understand it, if I believe in non-duality, both are true. And maybe this is the divine paradox. There is the all that is, that which we would call God, which the Kybalion calls the mind, the living mind. This
Mm-hmm.
is God, the all. And I arise from this. I am of that. I am, I am that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How could I be separate from that if I come from that? I mean, I guess there's matter of degrees, and I guess there's prismatic filters into which we incarnate that shift and change our form. But like, I am that. But in the incarnation itself, I am not that. I am a human
Right.
being. I am constrained. But the idea that, I mean, I'm not out here trying to say that I'm big G God. I don't believe that I am, but I
Right.
believe in the law of correspondence, right? We learn the law of correspondence is as above, so below. And if I can look at my own makeup, my beautiful magical DNA makeup, and my own abilities of manifestation and comprehension and creation, I can infer God. And I actually have a doorway in myself to access those powers that are mine, but that are God's. So I get really jumbled up here in my definition of self versus my definition of all.
Well, I think that that's the part that we will be exploring because they do say, I believe it's in chapter 3 or 4, that we will solve the riddle of the paradox,
Okay.
the seeming paradox, right? But from my point of view, what I believe that that means is, you know, how in the last podcast we discussed the levels, that there's causal levels, higher plane causal levels and lower plane causal levels. So I believe what they're referring to is that us in this causal level, as these avatars, let's say, of the divine characters in, um, do not contain the all. By definition, we are segmented. So if you're a segment of the all, you cannot be the all
Well, if
in
it's all
this.
if it's all holographic, doesn't the shard contain the whole? Doesn't the fraction
I
contain the
think
whole?
so, but I think again, it's like, you know, flower essences.
Hmm.
You know how you take a flower and you have the essence of the flower, but it's not the exact same thing as the flower in terms of
Yes.
potency or purity. I think that that's, and it's, I think, intentional, right? So that the all can create and experience whatever it wants to experience and create. So I think it's hard, and I don't think it maybe is exactly as black and white as we would like it to be. And I think that's what they're hinting at, is that there's so much that we don't know and we'll never know. And we have to be okay with that. Because I think as human beings, there's a big sort of ego, like, well, if I can have the thought, then I must be able to calculate the answer. And he's like, no, there's a lot of stuff you will not be able to figure out because it's well, he uses some strong words. We can get to that later about the
Right.
difference between religion
Right.
and theology. So we can explore that as we get there.
That's, yeah, that, and also in the very next chapter, in his definition of the all, he says the all is unknowable, which I also have a problem with. So
I feel
we'll
like
we'll
I don't
talk
like
about
that.
it. I don't know if I like that. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Uh,
Um, the next takeaway that I had was that our present day attempts to control the physical conditions, the gross elements, if you will, via the mental plane are flawed and imprecise. We're using vision boards, we're doing affirmations,
mm-hmm.
and we're using a system that sometimes works, but not always. And the quote on page 30 is, the various treatments affirmations, denials, etc., of the schools of mental science are but formulas, often quite imperfect and unscientific, of the Hermetic art. The majority of modern practitioners are quite ignorant compared to the ancient masters, for they lack the fundamental knowledge upon which the work is based. Not only may the mental states, etc., of oneself be changed or transmuted by Hermetic methods, but also the states of others may be and are constantly transmuted in the same way, usually unconsciously, but often consciously, by some understanding of the laws and the principles of self-protection. Okay, so there's so much contained
Yeah.
therein, but I did want to highlight that based on the three initiates, the way we are currently doing it doesn't really work. And later they call these types of systems of thought, schools of thought, to be half truths. We
Yes.
could say they're imprecise. And I would say that that is true. And I hear a lot from my students because I like to talk about manifestation quite a lot. One of the key things I hear is, well, how come it just doesn't keep on working? Sometimes
Hmm.
it works, but sometimes it doesn't. Or sometimes I'll manifest something I don't necessarily really want. It would be cool if I could have it. But then when I
Yeah.
really want something or really need something, I just can't manifest it. And I think that's because we don't have the whole picture, at least according to the Kybalion.
I believe that that's true. And I think most people that have played around with the law of attraction have had to face that, the sometimes inconsistent nature of what they manifest. And also some disappointment because there's this idea that somehow if you could control the law, then it would all be smooth sailing, which I think they very much say is not the case because you have a pendulum swing. That is the nature of the universe, is change. So things do not stay the same. And so you have to be prepared for when you ride into the manifestation that is not what you wish. What are you going to do to get yourself back quickly to where you want to be? But you can't control it all. So I think that is something that I found very useful. And also this idea of self protection. Now, if you think about how much influencers on social media influence many people's perception of their own worth, of what beauty is. So, like they were saying, consciously or unconsciously, how a belief system can infiltrate and have effects on other people and change their sense of self. So, I think that we don't even have to go too far
Mm-hmm.
to look at how other people can influence other people. We see it in groups, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So when you're in an environment with a lot of people that believe a certain way, you naturally become that way. And where is that coming from ultimately? Is mind. And the stronger minds are affecting the less trained or weaker minds and making them respond to their will, which we have seen now in the last 5 to 10 years
Mm-hmm.
across the world. Such a giving away of power to
Yes.
a very limited number of minds that are trying to control what people believe.
Yes, and the opposite of that is also the hopeful aspect, which is that your intention, your impressing upon the mental faculties, impressing upon the subconscious, if we're talking to Neville, can change not just your reality, but the reality of someone else. And according to Neville, and I'm paraphrasing here just based on memory from all the things I've read,
Yes.
you can actually go into an imaginal session and imagine your friend to have the thing that the friend wants, or imagine your friend to have the thing that you want the friend to have. It's really, it's indifferent, really. If you agree with
Yes.
yourself, you can do it. If this is your intention and you go into it with that intention, you can actually create new possibilities. You can create healing. You can create opportunities. You can create new relationships for other people. And that always, I was always curious about that. But this is also demonstrated in what Aleister Crowley did. I'm sure that person didn't want to trip and fall, but because
Yes.
he's in a state of energetic passivity, he
Yes.
received the transmission and
Yes.
it happened.
Exactly.
And we talked about
Exactly.
this in our last podcast. It's like your energy is communicating to my energy. My thinking, my brain might not be hearing it and processing it and understanding it, but my higher me, my subtle bodies, my energy me is absolutely taking in that transmission. It's happening all the time. So I think what I'm trying to say is that you can use this for good and not evil, but I think
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of people use it for evil and not good.
And they say it on page 31. He says, our purpose at this point being merely to show the Hermetic principle and art underlying all of these various forms of practice, good and evil. For the force can be used in opposite directions according to the Hermetic principle of polarity.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this reminded me so much. I'm a Star Wars freak. I just love it. I was Princess Leia for Halloween, right? So for me, it's this idea that what I've noticed in the later Star Wars movies is this recognition that the Force is not just good. The Force is the Force,
Mm.
and the Force can be used for light, and the Force can be used for dark. And it's the user who sets the point on the barometer of which way it's going to go. And so I found that very, very powerful because I think we tend to try to minimize the power of the dark side, right? And just like we tend to sometimes ignore the power of the light, because the dark seems to be so present in our minds, the way the media, it's all negativity and darkness. And like you're saying, we have the power to change that through our positive intention and our positive visioning, and collectively coming together to create a different reality. We can create a different outcome in the world. We just have to believe in it, which is what a lot of people, I think, don't, because they see so much suffering and they think, how can my mind change anything? I've heard that so much in my life. But what can we do?
Right. And so there is the force and there is the polarity of the force, which is the darkness and the light. But do you believe, like I do, which is that the light truly is stronger than the dark? Does the dark exist in a different section of the spectrum of that? I personally believe John 1:1, which is the light shines in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it. There is just something about the light. And that goes back to our discussion about proximity, and that the light is just another word that we use for God. It's just another word that we use for love. And there is no power, no energy, no force that is stronger than that, right?
That's where I'm struggling. I'm not sure what I think about that. I do believe God is love, and I do believe love is the strongest energy. Yet, what I'm trying to understand or be honest with myself is what do I think is this force? This force called life, right? Because there is power to our thoughts, and in the subconscious mind, in my experience in hypnotherapy, doesn't judge anything. It's like what Neville said, what you put into the subconscious is what it gets out. It's not discriminate. It doesn't say, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea, or that's not going to make you happy. So it really is a question of frequency, and certain frequencies feel better, and the higher you climb, the better you feel. So I think it's more about frequency than good or bad. I think that's where I'm getting to at this point in my life, because when he said, well, when you have a thermometer, where does hot begin and cold end? I don't know. When does love change into hate, and when does hate change into love?
But
I
you can
don't
feel
know.
it. The map of that is the feeling, right?
Yeah. And yet the feelings can be clouded by beliefs,
Hmm.
right? Because you don't have a feel. I believe you have thoughts before you have feelings, generally. Now, I'm not talking about feelings of hot and cold and ouch. I'm saying the emotions that come from the story that you tell.
Active or inactive. You're not necessarily having a conscious thought all the time that's making you feel something, but you can have a belief or a thought of yourself that you're holding in yourself that's inactive or not noticed, that is still causing you to feel, and you just don't know.
Exactly. I mean, it's in all the triggers that we have are exactly those thoughts, right? What are they? I mean, if you have a belief system that I can't do anything right, and you cook dinner and your partner says, pass the salt.
How dare you?
What? Mm,
It's
what are you trying to say?
perfect.
My steak isn't perfect. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
It's the trigger because there's already a belief. So
Mhm.
I had a belief, nothing has happened. He asked for the salt. Now I'm in a tailspin about the salt because I'm questioning my own worth. The emotion wasn't there a minute ago until the belief was activated, which is based on a thought and a story I created about myself. So you see,
Yes.
who's really running the show if 90% of you is subconscious anyway?
Right. Right. And the goal is to become conscious to your shadow, right? And to bring the light
Exactly.
into the shadow. But I'm just saying right now, and I might be a baby about it. I might be a baby, but I believe that the light of God is stronger than any other force. And I think that I can use the natural laws of the universe, which is mental. I can use these different principles in order to manifest. And I also believe that God used that evident in God's creation are these forces and principles that he used to make things manifest. Like I believe all of that, like the system of it, how it came down, how it happened. But at the end of my day, I just believe that that it is the strongest energy, and that the closer I am aligned to the energy of that which I can feel and I can testify I can witness to in my own spirit, I believe that's the answer to everything. In some ways, I'm wondering, and we'll get to it, but some of this just feels complicated to me a little bit. Feels a little
Hmm.
complicated, like a lot of scaffolding here in order to do the thing
Scaffolding.
that God does very naturally. And if I just align myself with that, these beautiful things move through me as an agent of God. I'm going to stop now because I realize that,
No,
but
I
I'm just
like
saying,
it.
I
I
get
like
I'm a
it. I think
baby.
it's true. And I think a lot of people agree with you. And I'm not saying I disagree with you. I just have taken a position at the moment where I'm suspending anything as I explore this book. So just kind of coming to it fully like open and trying to test this to see if it resonates with
You're
me.
so mature. You're so enlightened.
No.
I'm just reacting and like, God,
No.
God, goo, goo.
I like a good
Give
God.
me my God.
Don't mess with it.
Do you have any other thoughts and observations about this particular chapter? I mean, if you could condense it down just to a couple of sentences, what would you say this chapter is about?
Just basically that it's a mental universe, and we create through the mind, and we can influence physical reality through our thoughts, which I think we've already explored in other books. However, I think now we're going to learn a little bit of the how come that is this way, and a little bit more of how do we truly uh, consistently produce results once we truly understand the mechanism of creation and where we fall in that mechanism.
Okay. I like it.
You do?
I
You're
do.
gonna roll with it.
I'm rolling with that. Do you want to move on to the next chapter, which is entitled
Yes,
The All? Okay.
the
We're
all.
in the All, and there is a quote associated with this chapter. It reads, under and back of the universe of time, space, and change is ever to be found the substantial reality, the fundamental truth. And I took the liberty to quote the Kybalion on what substantial reality is and how it relates to the all, which I'll share with you, and then we can talk about it. Quote from page 32: substance means that which underlies all outward manifestations, the essence, the essential reality, the thing in itself. Substantial means actually existing, being the essential element, being real. Reality means the state of being real, true, enduring, valid, fixed, permanent, actual, etc. Under and behind all outward appearances or manifestations, that which we would call outpictured reality, there must always be a substantial reality. This is the law. Man, considering the universe of which he is a unit, sees nothing but change in matter, forces, and mental states. He sees that nothing really is, but that everything is becoming and changing. So that's heavy.
Well, it is, and I like what they said even afterwards. I don't know if you want to read the lines that follows, but they say nothing stands still.
Mhm.
Everything is being born, growing, dying. And the very instant, I love this, the very instant a thing reaches its height, it begins to decline.
Right.
The law of rhythm is in constant
Rhythm.
operation. There is no reality, enduring quality, fixity, or substantiality in anything. Nothing is permanent but change. How does that flip you around, right? Like nothing is permanent except the fact that it will change.
Mhm.
That's the only constant
Well,
that we
isn't
have.
isn't the all that is permanent though?
That's what they're saying. So this is what we see. So the
Right.
manifest world, which is why we know this is, I think, how they're trying to prove that there is a substantial uh, reality. Is that the word they used? They used the word
Yes.
substantial reality, the
Yeah.
substantial reality, yes, because what we see is not permanent. So, well, they go on in the next paragraph. He says he sees things evolving from other things and resolving into other things, a constant action and reaction. And if he be a thinking man, he realizes that all of these changing things must be but outward appearances or manifestations of some underlying power, some substantial reality. So it's the change we witness. And remember, we talked about as above, so below.
Correspondence.
So it's the change that we witness that tells us there must be something behind it that
Hmm.
doesn't change, that is causing the change. So that's, I never had heard the proof for God presented in, and, I know St. Thomas Aquinas did something, that hints at this again, but not in this way. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think that it's the law of correspondence or the principle of correspondence, also cause and effect. The end result indicates, well, it's in studying the monad, you
Yes.
understand the archangel, right? And so it's everything is speaking about the other thing, the underlying thing. What we're looking at is the effect, which
Right.
is always whispering about the cause. So that is
Yes.
just the way
I
that it
love
is.
that. I
Mhm.
love it. I like when they say something is creating these appearances. What is that something that is creating the appearances? And he says all thinkers in all lands, in all times, all of them have postulated the existence of a substantial reality, no matter what they call it. And he says that, you can call it by the name of God or some deity name, or you can call it the infinite and eternal energy, or you can call it matter. But at the end, everybody has postulated this as a truth, something we just know.
Right.
And this is where we go from there to what they postulate and call that ultimate substantial reality, which
It,
is the all,
yes.
right?
Yes, the all. It reminds me of that scripture, and I think it was St. Paul, and I'm paraphrasing, in which he says, all of earth bears witness to the glory of God. Same thing. It's truly
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. Look out your window, see the beautiful oak and how it is magically organized and alive and thriving and how it feeds this beautiful ecosystem in nature. Look at the sky, look around you. Like all
Look
of this
around.
bears witness to an intelligent designer, like somebody who or something that created this seemingly with intention. And so we have been looking for that, the meaning of life and who created it ever since time immemorial.
Yes, including yourself, right? You as an expression of that too. Who
Yes.
am I? Isn't that everybody's big question? Like
Mhm.
when I work with people, uh, and they come in, I'm going to say 7 out of 10 times, I say, what can I help you with? They're like, well, I'm really just trying to figure out who I am and what is my purpose? What am I doing here? 70% of the time, no matter even if it shows up as a relationship issue or a money issue or a health issue, when you go and have the conversation a little bit, there's this emptiness, there's this void, and the driver is, who am I? What am I here to do? What is my purpose?
Mhm.
Once people have that, everything else falls into place.
Well, I used to do intuitive readings for many, many, many years, and that was one of the questions that I got all of the time. And even when I live stream, if I'm doing something, even if I pull a card, that's like the question people really want to know. It's like, why am I here? What is my
Mm-hmm.
purpose? What am I good at? What are my talents? And I was just teaching this to my 360 group, but I'm like, I don't answer that question anymore
Mm-hmm.
because the answer to that question exists inside of you. And you came into this incarnation with everything you need to not only answer that question for yourself, but to do the damn thing, to include all of your gifts and talents. Like all of that exists inside of you. You can go to a hypnotherapist, you can go to an intuitive reader, and we can take you on the path and we can get you um, kind of acquainted with some of the things that are true and real. I'm sure we can reveal some of that to you, but like that is something that you inherently know how to do. So,
It's
life
in your
purpose.
DNA.
Yes, it
It's in
is
your
in.
DNA. But I do believe that we've become so disconnected
Mhm.
from our own knowing that I think that that's the role that we play for people, is to try to link them back up with their own intelligence, with their own higher knowing. So then the answer can come to them. Because of course
Right.
we don't have that answer. We can't answer that for anybody else.
Well, some intuitive readers can get close. We can,
You're
but
like,
like,
well, I can.
honey, no. But
Speak
like,
about yourself, girl.
no. But some, we could like, I could figure, I could see a book and I can say, oh, you're here to write something, but I can't
Yeah.
really develop your message. Like, I can't necessarily articulate in full what your message is here on this planet. But in my 360 class, I simplified life purpose, if you want to take just a small detour,
Mm.
because we all have the same purpose, I believe.
Hmm.
The very same purpose. You have the same purpose that I have, and that is to embody the light and the energy of God. St. Francis said, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And that's it, truly. Like, how can I find ways? My purpose is to find ways to become the instrument of this force of God so that it may animate in life through me. From the most mundane ways, I'm going into a Safeway, buying some cheese. I happen to see someone, I pass along a kind word. Maybe I pray for them. I am becoming a blessing. I am the force of God, even in the mundane moments, all the way over to where you're at the height of your compassion and service. But that's not purpose. Me talking to someone in Safeway is not my purpose. That's the
Right.
path of my purpose. That's where my purpose magnetically will take me if I am embodying this energy of God. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. So it's we can all do that because we all have an innate ability to connect to the light of God. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is inside of you, honey. It's inside of you. So that's where you access it from, and that's through which you fill up with that light. So just to
Oh,
everybody
completely.
out there,
I
that's
agree
my
with you.
answer.
I think in human design, we talk a lot about the different soul types and
Mm-hmm.
how each person comes with their unique design crystal and
Ooh,
purpose. Yeah, it's beautiful. And
what?
it really is. Yeah, you have a life, a crystal that has, which is really code
Mm-hmm.
for your life purpose, but you also have your soul purpose. So you have two designs, and one is conscious and one is unconscious. And they're both trying to express in this incarnation. And so what's beautiful is you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, you're expressing the reason why source created you, which is ultimately love, if we want to look at it like that. But in this specific incarnation, there's something very special that only you can do. There's something that you have, that perfect sauce,
Yes.
the Arby's 4C sauce. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
you are that, and you're here to give that. And so I think that that's the part that's beautiful, is to find these methodologies that allow us to figure out, what is my secret sauce, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And what am I here to give in my very unique way that no one else can? It's fun.
Yes. It is fun.
Right?
It's meant to be.
It is.
And people wonder why they would ever incarnate into such a crazy world and on this strange planet where everything seems to be going wrong all the time.
Mhm.
But as a soul, we were so excited to get here. We're like, oh, I helped create that landscape. I inherently know how to navigate my life down there. And I want to go in there and be an agent of change. I want to embody. I want to
Yeah.
fill up and then I want to animate from that energy. That is how you shift. That is how we all get to the fifth dimension if we believe in things like that. It's by
Yes,
being, occupying, embodying love. There wasn't a whole
absolutely.
lot of love talk in the Kybalion thus far.
No,
I'm kind of
not
missing
so
it,
far.
but
I know.
that's all
I
right.
feel you. I feel you. Maybe we'll get to it. We still have a lot of chapters to go.
Gaga
Maybe in
cuckoo.
vibration.
I'm a baby.
Vibration.
Gaga cuckoo. Give me my love. Give me my God. Okay. Something I needed clarity on, so I wanted to
Hmm.
punt this to you,
Okay.
is this quote. The Hermetists believe and teach that the all in itself is and must ever be unknowable. They regard all the theories and guesses and speculations of the babies, I mean, the theologians and the
The baby.
metaphysicians regarding the inner nature of the all as but the childish efforts of mortal minds to grasp the secret of the infinite. I feel very attacked.
Mm.
So, but it really did cause me to ask the question, can we really not know God? And again, through the law of correspondence, can I not look at the earth, and doesn't that bear witness to the glory of God? Can I not look at myself, magical being, and infer the magical nature of God? Is God truly unknowable? Do you believe this?
I think that it's a little bit about language. I don't believe that God is I believe that you can experience God.
Okay,
That's different than knowing God.
get it. I get it.
Knowable meaning I can't figure it out with my mind.
Right.
I
But I
think
can
that's what,
feel it. I can be in
yes, I
communion
can
with it.
experience, I can commune, but then I
Mhm.
can't put it into words, as we've
Right.
seen with every mystic throughout time. They can hint at it, they can point at it, but at the end, when you don't have the experience, you don't know.
Okay, that was a really simple answer that explained it all. Thank you. Yeah, because
You're
I
welcome.
feel in my life I have known God, but I'm talking in a gnosis kind of way. I have
Right.
felt God. I've been present in the energy of God. But that doesn't mean in my human mind that I understand how he created anything, much less me. I don't
Exactly.
understand in a thinking
Exactly.
way. Got it, got it,
And
got
they
it.
also said, the all is unknowable. This must be so, for not by the all itself can comprehend its nature and being. So, how can you understand the totality of something unless you are the totality of that something? That's like, when we want everybody else to understand us. And we're like, I don't understand why you don't understand that this is important to me.
Right,
And the other person's like, well, I am not you.
right.
So, because by definition we are not the all, but only a part of the all, it's impossible to know the all by definition.
Got it. And I agree with that.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
I can't read your mind, Crystal. That's Jeremy. What? You can't read my mind?
I don't
Uh,
understand. What do you mean?
all of my expectations, which are causing my suffering. I don't get it. All right. Another takeaway that I had is it is human nature and erroneous to attempt to define or personify the all based on this quote from page 34. And still more presumptuous are those who attempt to ascribe to the all, the personality, qualities, properties, characteristics, and attributes of themselves, which we totally do this,
Mm-hmm.
ascribing to the all, the human emotions, the feelings, the characteristics, even down to the pettiest qualities of mankind, such as jealousy, susceptibility to flattery and praise, desire for offerings and worship, and all other survivals from the days of the childhood of the race,
I
the
love that.
primordial urge. I thought that was really poignant. And I think, of course, we can see humanity doing this across all of the major religions, which, they reduce down to rules and regulations, dogma theology, protocols and rituals in order to connect to this thing that's unknowable and is so vast that you are a part of, in, but not of. I thought that was mic drop. Absolutely true.
Totally agreed. And at the end of that sentence, they say such ideas are not worthy of grown men and women and
Babies.
are
I told
rapidly
you.
being discarded. I thought that was funny. But the part that is very interesting about that is that, what he said, it was at the beginning of our human race when we were trying to make sense of things and we were in a very hostile, overwhelming environment, right? As a species, as a creation. So I think that when I realized that this didn't make any sense for me, and I fully respect anybody, but when I would look at the Old Testament with the super angry God,
Hmm.
very fickle, and he likes David, but he doesn't like this one, and you know what I mean. And I was like, oh my God. And I realized when I had my sons, that the amount of love that I was able to give was so big, so much bigger than anything I ever thought that I could have, and the way that I want to protect them and never hurt them, that I realized God could not have those qualities of anger, and because how could God be less than what I'm capable of being? It didn't make any sense. And that's when it all started to fall apart for me, this whole idea of
Hmm.
like a very human like God,
That is
really.
how hell fell apart for me
Mm,
because I would never consign my child to an eternity of torture and torment in flames. I just couldn't even conceive of it. I would never do it. And Jesus actually addresses this when he's talking to his disciples. And he is basically saying, if you as a parent know how to give a good gift to your child, how much more does your Father in heaven know how to give a good gift? And the implications are so robust from that. And how much more would your Father not consign you to an eternity of hell? And how much more would your Father not treat you with malice or venom or blah, blah, blah? It just opened up the possibility, oh, maybe we have been getting it wrong about God this entire time. Maybe this is our attempt to bridge the distance between humanity and God by having to anthropomorphize, create a
Yes.
human, create an idol where God should be.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes,
Agreed.
yes, yes. Well, let's move on now to the three distinct attributes of the all. So we want to understand what the all, yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing before we did that, that I
Mhm.
love that he did that paragraph with the distinction between religion and theology,
Oh yeah, let's get into that. Please get into that.
right?
Do you want to read that? Because
Yeah.
it's long, but it's so good.
Yes. I summarized it and I said, okay, so between religion and theology, religion to us means that religion to us means that intuitional realization of the existence of the all and one's relationship to it. Well, we just discussed the experience of it, right?
Right.
While theology means the attempts of men to ascribe personality, qualities, and characteristics to it. Their theories regarding its affairs, will, desires, plans, and designs, and their assumption of the office of middlemen
Mhm.
between the all and the people. So that was sort of their differentiation, right? Which I thought was right on.
Me too.
And then between philosophy and metaphysics, they say philosophy to us means the inquiry after knowledge of things knowable and thinkable, knowable and thinkable. While metaphysics means the attempt to carry the inquiry over and beyond the boundaries and into regions unknowable and unthinkable,
Mhm.
and with the same tendency as that of theology. And
Yes,
I was like, yes, this is exactly what it is. So I
it
resonated
is.
a lot with the distinction that they made between those things.
And I feel this as a teacher of metaphysics. I feel this when I'm teaching something like the system of the dimensions of light, which is a system created by a human, or even
Mm-hmm.
the Kabbalist tree of life, which is also a dimensional map, right?
Yes.
That's people intuiting. I'm feeling my way into what the truth is, and then I'm going to create a system out of it, which is your theology.
Right.
Um, and what we end up doing is creating stories,
Yes.
and we create rules around the stories, which inevitably brings limitation, right? And then also um, stridency and being strict about what stories you can believe in and how you can act in accordance with that. So we create all these systems based on the religion aspect, based on the Kybalion, which is the intuition. I'm feeling that there's more to life than this. Yeah, metaphysics can very often get it wrong. Like I've got so many books right over there talking about all the alien races and what kind of attributes they have and what they look like. And I'm reading them and I'm like, this is hooey. This is interesting, but I don't
Yes.
believe any of it. Like a lot of these books, I discard most of it, but they're interesting. But it's people trying to establish as fact something that is actually unknowable. There's no proof.
Yes. And I felt that way, when I studied energy healing. I really started, I think the first one was, I don't remember what the kind of healing it was. It had a name. And I went and I did that. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to do pranic healing. And I went and I did that. And then I went and I did Reiki and I did that. And then I did crystal healing and on and hands of light and a million different things. And
Mm.
at the end, I realized it's the same thing. It's just somebody felt the tingling and knew that healing could happen when awareness and intention gets channeled and manifested, right? By my intention and attention,
Mental transmutation.
right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
communicating that and I'm collectively sharing that with the person that's wanting to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other, whether it's a blue light or an orange light, whether it's hands on or hands off, whether I'm crying or screaming or waving, it's all the same thing. And we're trying to break it down to codify it so
Mm-hmm.
that we can somehow have control over an
Proprietary.
uncontrollable.
Right.
Exactly.
I
That's
own
why I don't
it.
do it. Now I'm just like spirit.
We want to be priests. We want to be the
Yes,
priests of the knowledge, the middlemen, as you
the
just read.
middleman.
It's
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary. We don't need that.
Yes.
Okay, so the three distinct attributes of
Mm-hmm.
the all. The all is God for baby Crystal, right? Okay. Quote from page 36. The human reason informs us as follows regarding the all. Number one, the all must be all and really is. There can be nothing existing outside of the all, or else the all would not be the all. Two,
Okay.
the all must be infinite, for there is nothing else to define, confine, bound, limit, or restrict the all, so it's infinite. And three, the all is immutable, or not subject to change in its real nature, for there is nothing, no outside force, to work changes upon it, nothing into which it could change, nor from which it could have changed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Otherwise, it wouldn't be the all, right? How could it be
correct.
the all if it changes or expands or whatever? Then that means you're going into something past the all, which by
Right.
definition doesn't make any sense.
Right. And isn't there a scripture that says that God is the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow?
Yes,
So, in the Alpha and the
yes.
Omega. Mm,
And I like when they talk about the infinite, that it must be. So, step one, it's the all is the all because it's the all. Okay, I
right.
like that one. That one
Period.
was easy. The all must be infinite. And then they take time to define infinite in time. So, eternal, there's no limit, infinite in space. So, everywhere, there is no place outside of the all, infinite in power. So absolute. So they went through these distinctions about what it truly means. So there's no limit. There's nothing to limit it. And then it must be, I think, have you said three yet?
Yes.
Immutable, right?
Immutable, unchangeable. Yep.
So it can't
Unchanging.
change. Unchanging, exactly. It has never, it is now as it ever shall be. I remember that from the prayer. Uh, and as it is now and forever shall be, world without end. Amen. That's
Amen.
the end of the, you know. So in conclusion, the all being infinite, absolute, eternal, and unchangeable, it must follow that anything finite, changeable, fleeting, and conditioned cannot be the all by definition, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as there is nothing outside of the all
Mm-hmm.
in reality, then any and all such finite things must be as nothing in reality. And that was interesting because then they're like, and then you start, and they're saying, this is not meant to scare you. You're not
Right.
nothing, right? Because we are finite, right? The
Right.
human constructs. So then what are we? Because if everything is the all, so nothing can be outside of the all, but then finite things would be nothing and they'd have to exist outside of the all. So that can't be by definition. So what are we? And that's what we start to explore
Mm-hmm.
in the next bit. They start going
Yes.
into matter, right? So
Yes.
we know matter exists, we see it, we feel it, we're around it. So is matter the all? And they go, no, matter cannot be the all because matter cannot manifest life or mind, right? It can't, it's
Yes.
just matter. So as life and mind are manifested in the universe, because we have life and we have mind, then the all cannot be matter. And they said, for nothing rises higher than its own source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You cannot become what you, the limit of what you are limits you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to, and they make an incredibly long explanation of why. And then they say, well, okay, but now science has taught us that matter is vibration, right? So is matter energy? Is matter the vibration? Is that all there is? Well, they said not energy or force as the materialists use the terms, for their energy and force are blind mechanical things, devoid of life or mind. Life and mind can never evolve from blind energy or force for the reason given a moment ago. Nothing can climb higher than its source. So then they go, well, okay, well, if it's not matter and it's not energy, and we know that it exists in the universe, then what is it? And then they're like, life and mind.
Mm-hmm.
life and mind in all their varying degrees of unfoldment. And then they said, and then I love it because then you ask, do you mean to tell us that the all is life and mind? Yes and no. What
Yes,
did you
I
think
see.
about that?
It was mind bending. I mean, I think that it it took us back to life, living mind, which is spirit,
Yes.
right? And they even say that's what the illumined would call it, is spirit, the living mind. And is the spirit the mental universe? I think we're at this point, that's chapter 5 where you're talking
Yes.
from, which we're going to
Yes.
talk in full about next week. But I feel like, I don't know.
Well, that's the
Well,
thing. They said, so they answer it in the end of chapter 4,
it
right?
sounds like they're
They
saying that we're the all too. Am I
Right. So
wrong?
they're saying if you mean life and mind, if we
Mhm.
mean life and mind as we conceive of life and mind, then the
Right.
answer is no. The answer is living mind, as far above that which mortals know by those words, as life and mind are higher than mechanical forces or matter,
Mhm.
infinite living mind as compared to finite life and mind. We mean that which the illumined souls mean when they reverently pronounce the word spirit.
Right.
The all is infinite living mind. The illumined call it spirit. And I love that. I was like, okay, so this is it's an eternal mind.
Right.
It's not finite. So that's what makes it the creative force, consciousness. What the
Yes.
Vedas call consciousness, right? Awareness.
Well, is consciousness the mind and living the creation? Like, because the mind is the consciousness. This is God as God is, immutable. And the living is the act of the mind, the animating force, which creates this mental universe, which does obey these laws that we get into in this book. So the living mind is
Yeah.
kind of creator and creation at the same time.
Yes. Because there's only one thing, the all.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you a clarifying question about the end of chapter 4, in which we discuss how the all is immutable and unchangeable. And so, do we really believe? Can you tell us what we believe? Do we really believe that God, the consciousness of God, has never evolved, is not evolving, just is like an inert consciousness? Do you really think that God just, well, God didn't begin, God always was. God always, my
Yes.
mind is bending.
It's difficult because we are used to the construct of time,
And the
right?
law of correspondence, though, would also tell us if we're evolving, isn't, maybe it's just to the universe is also evolving, but is God also evolving?
And what does it mean to evolve, right? Because again, evolution presumes that you are going through a period of change, right? Which
Hmm.
we do see is true in the physical world, right? In the
Yes.
physical universe. The question is, what is the true nature of that change? Because if we perceive it to be linear, right? Like
Right.
I wanted to be a doctor, so I went to school and I studied these things, and then I became a doctor, and now I want to become a specialist. So I'm going to study these things and I'm going to become a specialist. So it's everything's very linear. Our whole universe and our like we were, let's say if you believe in evolution, you were a monkey, the monkey evolved, and now it evolved into humanity. It's always very linear and tied to time. There was a beginning and there's a place we're headed. So I think that the unknowable is beyond those constructs. So while we keep looking for the answer through the construct of time, it will evade us. The idea of evolution as we know it, as we've experienced it. I think that's why I think that to understand this and the nature of God, there has to be an experience beyond understanding, beyond
Hmm.
mental understanding. So that's where I've left off with this. I'm like, I don't know,
Okay.
but I definitely
Me
believe
too.
it's too big.
It's very big, and
Yeah.
as we're talking, I'm wondering how many people are with us right now, or if you're checking out because it's
Yeah.
so dense. And if you are, please don't, just stay with us because we're trying to reason it out as well. But I
Yeah.
mean, I admit that these are concepts that require inquiry, rumination, which is to think in a room. I'm joking. Inquiry and rumination and time, because and as you were talking about evolution being linear, there's also this other thing that I think we misperceive to be evolution, which is the unfolding of something that already and always was, already is and always was, just
Right.
revealing itself incrementally to us, to which we ascribe change, but it has never
Yes.
changed. It always has
Because what is
been.
change, right? Other
Right.
than a perspective, you cannot view anything except you cannot have perspective on anything unless you are reduced down to the perspective of the observer,
Hmm.
right? So until I pick a position and relative to my position, I observe the change. So to me, monkey less than human. But what if I'm standing somewhere else?
Hmm.
So then all of that changes. So the nature of reality is personal, and there isn't a real reality. It's all perspective.
Wow. That's my comment about these two chapters. It's
It's a
wow.
lot.
I felt like I was doing a college paper, doing a
Mm-hmm.
college report. I'm like, I should really collate all of my notes from this book because it just really did blow my mind. And for everyone watching and listening, next week we are going to be getting into chapters 5 and 6. I think we need to do like little smaller chunks.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 is the mental universe. Chapter 6. Chapter 6, honey, is the divine paradox. And I have thoughts, I have questions. So please, Eleni, come with some answers for me. But are you enjoying it so far? Are you enjoying
Oh,
it?
I am. I
Yeah.
am. I find it, to be honest, difficult to speak on
Yep.
because I do find it to be one of these types of books where if you are not reading it with us, if you're not reading along, it's almost impossible to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the only concern that I have for our poor
Mm-hmm.
listeners that tune in and maybe
What are
just
they
like to
talking
enjoy
about?
listening. Yeah, they're like, what are they saying?
What are these ladies even
Um,
doing?
but I do think there's a lot of truth to it, and it's helped me to think about things in a different way. So I'm excited to see where this takes me personally.
Well, and I don't think we can understate the value of reading it anyway. And this is something I have told my students as well. Like, you can read something or even take a class from somebody and not necessarily understand in a thinking way exactly what they're saying. It may be all Confucius or Chinese to you, like you don't understand it, not Confucius, but Chinese to you. But the higher you, that subtle body of you, that higher mind of you, that astral you, absolutely understands in an energetic way everything that's being offered. And I can attest to the fact, and perhaps you can too, that just in the reading of it, even though I'm gaga goo gooing over
Mm-hmm.
here, I'm receiving activations like that energy is getting into the system of me. And it's working its
Agreed.
way through me. It's loosening up some parts and it's making me
Mm-hmm.
able to get to these higher phases or levels of realization and understanding. So just because it's difficult doesn't mean it is not worthwhile, which, for me,
Yeah.
I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of girl. I'm like, if it's too hard, I'm not going to stay with it. But I'm
I
staying
agree.
with it
Mm-hmm.
because I can feel in my
Yes,
energy that something's happening.
I agree. It's a very powerful activation for sure. That's the best word, the one that you used, an
Mhm.
activation. And I don't know, I feel like today, after I was reading that, I sat for my meditation and I thought, oh my God. And we'll get to that to chapter 5. So I'm going to save my oh my God until we
Okay.
talk about chapter 5. Yes.
Okay. But yeah, lots of things are happening in the
Mm-hmm.
spirit, in the mental universe of Elenique
Stay
and
tuned
crystalline content. Yes,
for
more
my
to
for
come.
my oh my goodness. Yeah.
Well, everybody, we've had so much fun. Thanks for hanging out
Mm-hmm.
with us to
Thank
discuss
you.
the Kybalion and watch as we are working our way. We're gyrating through the understandings, having a hard time a little bit, just bopping. Next week again, chapters 5 and 6. Think about joining our Facebook group, Miraculous Thinking, and also giving us a little email, writing us, telling us what you think of the podcast, and making some book suggestions. We would love it. All you have to do is write to us at miraculousthinking@gmail.com. And until next time, we hope you have a beautiful day or evening, as the case may be. Bye, guys. We love you.